what is your experience? Because now you say you have two children. Do you co-parent?
All right, so I have two kids with two different people. And I would say that one relationship is better than the other. With my first son, his dad, he went through a traumatic life experience. And when he had to recover to get back to himself, be able to do for himself. And that took a toll on me because I was really a single parent after that. Like, I had to, I couldn't, okay, if he was sick and I had to bring my son to the doctor, I couldn't say, hey, bring him to the doctor because he was sick himself. Okay, so he got shot in the head.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he had to go through therapy. He had to get, he had to start from scratch. And thank God he recovered. You wouldn't even know if you seen him today. He fully recovered. So that was traumatic for me as well. And I just had to do everything on my own. I really didn't have that co-parenting relationship with him that I wanted to. And when he did come back to, I realize now that he was just a kid. We both were, but he was only 16. And I'm trying to make him be a father, and he's trying to get back to himself 100% and be a father. That's hard. But back then, like Jaira keeps saying, young and ignorant, I'm like, all right, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, well, you doing this, you doing that. Well, you can take him. Well, you doing this, you doing that. You outside with your friends, you can take him. But it wasn't that easy. So it took a lot of growing up for me to be at the place where we are now. Because I never really sat and thought about it from where he's coming from and the things that he have to do and the things that he have to overcome. Now that I know, it's much better, but it was rocky at first. The other one, we were in a long time situationship, relationship, whatever you want to call it. But we have become best friends in the meantime. So co-parenting with him is smooth.
That's good. You said something that I like, that he had to grow up himself.
Yeah.
And did he have a background where he came from two parents? Both of y'all, either one of y'all can answer this question for me. Do any of the babies, the fathers of your children, have both parents in their house, or do they come from single parenting themselves?
My first one, both parents in his house. The second one, the father was around in the beginning, but then mom and dad split up, so then he was with mom.
And geez, now I'm actually sitting after the interview. I'm like, maybe I should have went over this with Ron. So, he actually grew up with his dad, but his mom, I believe from like age 11, 12, his mom relocated to Atlanta, Georgia. She got married, and his dad was like, he's his father's only child, and he was like, I'm not letting my baby go. So he went down, got him, and he's been living with his dad ever since. But I feel like, which is hard to kind of me to bring up because this is his story and not mine, and I don't want to take that from him by telling it, but I feel like that did affect him in a negative way, and his mom did just pass this October that just passed unexpectedly. So once again, I don't want to go too in depth about that right now. That's his story, but I do feel like, you know, him not having his mother present affected him negatively, but he turned it into a positive because, yeah.
So what support system did you happen to have outside of the father? Because you said he wasn't there to help you. Did you have other support system to help you in raising your child at the time?
Yeah, so my family is from Mississippi. And my mother came up here when she was 15, moved right in the hood, and then she had me. And her parents, my grandparents, was always there for her. So we are really close-knit. And when I had my first son, my cousins would watch him while I go to school, while I go to work. That was their baby, too. So I didn't have to worry about anything. They would buy him clothes. Whatever I didn't do, they did. They was the daddies.
I find that support is very important in our community, one way or another, whether it be with the father, co-parenting, mothers, grandmothers, aunties, and uncles, which we don't hear a lot in our communities. You know, oftentimes we don't hear too much of other family members helping us. So I think that was a plus. Do you find that they're still engaged with you, with their families? Are they still helping? Did that make a big difference?
yes, it made a big difference because now I come across a lot of women who are struggling with childcare because they don't have anyone, or they came up here because their family situation is terrible. They met a guy, had a baby, and now he's terrible, and they're just in a terrible relationship, terrible situation, and have no one. So I feel extremely blessed, and yes, my family is still involved. We help each other.
That's good. That's good. Yourself, Daria?
Yeah, actually, you know, it's funny because I speak daily about my support system because they're so awesome. I mean, everyone, like, for me, dang, Ma, happy Mother's Day, Ma. For me, my mom was definitely superwoman, and I remember one of the questions was, what is a mother? And that is a mother, right? Superwoman. To me, that's what I identify as a mom, right? Because you have to be. Like Sequoia said, you're so many things. You're from a doctor to a coach to a chef to a therapist. Like, you play so many roles for so many different people and so many different personalities. It's like you are literally superwoman, right? And that itself, when you have a child, so now you're not only superwoman for like your child, you're superwoman for your grandchild, right? And that's what my mom was, because she let me go back to school. I gave birth in August, and I left a week later to finish my sophomore year at Morgan State. I stayed maybe 3 weeks and came home because I couldn't do it, honestly. My boobs was leaky. I felt uncomfortable. My mom was saying that he wouldn't like emotionally connect with anyone. So I transferred to online classes and I came home, but my mom was my major support. With my second child, me and my mom relationship was getting really shaky, but my sisters, I have about 8 to 9 sisters. And when I tell you my first 2 years, I didn't work. My siblings did everything, like from buying diapers every week to one of my sisters used to boost. God, we sorry. We were struggling at the time. She would go into Macy's and tear everything off the rack, and my kids was in everything latest. All I had to do was buy their sneakers, so it was nothing to keep my kids fly. Like, you couldn't tell we were struggling. Like, you know what I'm saying? You couldn't tell I didn't work in 2 years. But that was the support, right? And that's where community comes into place. And I feel like even my sisters, like people from the church, because I used to be really hands-on in the church, and they would call me on Saturdays and like, hey, we're going to do this. Can we get the boys? We're going to have a boys' day. And I'm really overprotective of my kids. I would go. But that sense of community gave me peace, because although I was with them, I still was able to be present, but still focus on myself, whether I was entertain social media or read a book. So, yeah, I definitely had support, and I definitely feel like support is pivotal in any child's upbringing.
Well, we thank God for that, because definitely it takes, I'm an old school, I believe that it takes a village to raise the child, and so there are many that don't have that support. I was one, I didn't really have a support system, because my mother was so upset with me having a child at 14, which most mothers would be, and she never really got over it. She thought she was too young herself to be a mother, and so I had to do what I had to do.
Wait, to be a mother or a grandmother?
To be a grandmother.
I was about to say, Mama, you have. She's going on.
But actually, the reason I say that, because she actually had a son, my youngest brother, after my older 2 children.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
Uncle
Mama,
brother.
Yeah, Mama felt like she was way too young to be a grandmother. Now looking back at it, we can laugh and joke about it, but it was very hard being at 15 with 2 sons, trying to figure out what to do. I dropped out, trying to take care of the kids, and I went back to school. And it was not until, God is good, not until my oldest son was getting ready to graduate himself from high school, I prayed, I said, Lord, even if it's a GED. So I went and got my GED, because I just stopped completely going to school, just taking care of my kids at this point. Like I said, by the time I was 28, I had 5 of them. And so all I knew was my children. I literally just poured everything that I knew that I was into my kids. So I say that to say the support system that you guys have now is awesome. And, continue to embrace that, continue to appreciate and be grateful about it, because not too many people have that. And as we're moving on to the next question, it says that black women or in an urban community, we're strong, we're aggressive and angry. What do you guys say about that? Because being single parent and the absentee of a father, or maybe he's not as active as you would want him to be.
Do you want to answer that first?
No, you can answer.
Okay, so bam. So with the whole black women, the aggression thing, I agree with it, unfortunately. I'm sorry, don't kill me, don't kill my comments. I honestly agree. Why? I'm not blaming black women, right? I'm just agreeing that I feel like we are aggressive, and I'm not saying it's because we're angry and we're just miserable. No, I feel like we're hurting, right? And we come from other generation of other women that are hurting. So their pain, it comes off as anger and aggression, but a lot of times they're suffering in silence. So I do feel like black women especially, yes, we have to, and that's a defense mechanism. And it's almost disturbing that we have to walk around feeling like we gotta be so hard. Yeah, man, it sucks. That was a question, right?
That is a question, but you yourself personally, do you see yourself in that category? Just because of the many reasons that you just listed, you have support both with the father and with your family. So do you find yourself to be aggressive and angry?
So I don't feel as much as it comes from being a parent, right? I feel as much it comes from as my culture setting. But yes, I do feel like when I first had my child, I was an angry black woman. And I don't mean no disrespect, because obviously I am a black woman, but I was angry, and it took me a lot of self-work, a lot of healing for me to get in a place of peace now. So yes, and it wasn't because I was hurt, right? Because I was a child having a kid, and I had a awesome background. I was in private school. I got whatever I want. Like, I really had a phenomenal upbringing. I can't really complain, besides the fact that my parents was extremely strict. Other than that, I cannot complain about my upbringing. But what I had was an African-American mother, right, who had a lot of heartbreak and a lot of anger, whether it was from her childhood dealing with an abusive mother or a mother that talked down to her. So now you have this lady who has never healed, right? Who's never went to therapy, who's never actually tried to put in the work to become a better her. And my mother's phenomenal. I'm not taking anything from her. But this is a typical black woman story, right? So she has all of this hurt now, all of this pain that's harboring inside her body, but the only thing she wants is a child. My mom had me at 30, and she struggled for years. So now she had this one thing that she's always wanted, right? She loves me to death in her eyes. Mm-hmm. But growing up, I felt like I wasn't loved from her, right? So this lady who felt like, oh my God, the one thing that I want, I'm gonna have it, I'm gonna cherish. Because this is the stories that I get from my aunts, uncles, grandmothers. Like, your mother was so excited. She didn't know how to love. And it's not because she's a malicious person, but it's because she has so much pain and was harboring so much hurt that we never hugged. She never told me she loved me. She's never given me kisses walking out the door. She's never did none of those things. So now I'm growing as a woman now, right? And I'm becoming an adult. And now I'm in this intimate relationship. And now when my boyfriend touches me, I feel weird, right? Because I've never had that emotional connection. Now, my dad, who was a man, and my dad loves me. I'm a daddy's girl, full-fledged to this day. That's my dog. Love you, Jay. But he's not going to give that emotional aspect that your mom gives you, right? He's not going to nurture me in that way. So a lot of my friends, they be like, oh, Jay, you act like a typical dude, because that's who really raised me, right? He gave me the way of life. My mom was definitely there, but her anger and her pain prevented her from being present. So yes, I do feel like myself, I was an angry black mother, but I did the work, right? I seen with my first child how it was affecting him, right? And I also seen, I have really close white friends, and how they interact with their children and how their parents was interacting with them. I seen it, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing this wrong. Like, why am I popping my son and he's 2? Like, why am I yelling at him? Like, why am I asking him, is he stupid at 6? Like, that's wrong, you know? But that was normal, because my dad till this day would ask us, is you stupid? Like, so yeah, I had to do some healing and put my babies in family therapy, because I didn't want to continue that curse. So yes, in itself, I do think black women are angry.